For 8 years, the boy touched his ear, every single day, sometimes gently, sometimes frantically, like he was trying to claw something out that no one else could see. His father noticed. The doctors noticed. They all said the same thing. Nerve damage, congenital, irreversible. Nothing we can do. His father spent 60 billion won, over $50 million, flew across 3 continents, and begged the world's most brilliant specialists to look one more time. They all shrugged, took his money, and told him to accept reality. Then, a maid from Nigeria noticed something no one else did, and what she found inside that child's ear would shatter everything they thought they knew. Pay attention, because things like this happen every day in our society. Kang Jae-won was a billionaire, not the kind who flaunted wealth, but the kind who owned it so completely that even his silence commanded empires. CEO of Hansong Pharmaceuticals, a company that manufactured hope in pill form for millions. Private estates, helicopters, investment portfolios that could fund small countries. But his 8-year-old son, Hyun-woo, was born deaf. 8 years old and never heard a single sound. Not his father's voice, not music, not laughter, nothing. Jae-won tried everything. Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, the Mayo Clinic, Tokyo University Hospital, specialists in Switzerland who charged $15,000 just to walk into the room. They ran MRIs, CT scans, genetic tests, auditory brainstem response tests. All of them said the same thing: irreversible, congenital, sensory neural hearing loss. Accept it, move on. But Jae-won couldn't accept it, because Hyun-woo was all he had left. His wife, Mi-sun, died giving birth to that boy, hemorrhaged on the operating table while Hyun-woo took his first silent breath. So Jae-won kept searching, kept spending, kept praying to a God he wasn't sure was listening anymore. What he didn't know was that the answer wasn't coming from a hospital. It was coming from the woman he'd just hired to clean his floors.
Welcome, best friends. It's Onyx, aka K-Afro Tales. Before we continue, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, you're gonna want to see how this ends. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I truly believe, from the bottom of my heart, that this story found you today for a reason. Now, let me tell you about the maid who changed everything.
Adana Okafor was a maid, 27 years old, no medical degree, no credentials, just a woman from Enugu, Nigeria, trying to send money home to keep her grandmother's medication coming. She'd been in Seoul for 3 years, working whatever job she could find, living in a shared apartment with 4 other women. When the agency called about a position at the Kang estate in Pyeongchang-dong, she nearly cried. The pay was 3 times what she'd been making, enough to finally breathe. But the moment she walked through those gates, she knew this wasn't just a job. This was a tomb. The Kang mansion was massive, traditional Hanok architecture blended with modern glass and steel, perched on a hillside overlooking Seoul like a silent monument. Everything about it whispered wealth. Marble floors, hand-carved woodwork, art that belonged in museums. But it was the silence that struck Adana first. Not peaceful silence, suffocating silence, like the house itself was holding its breath. Mrs. Choi, Soon-hee, the head housekeeper, gave her the tour with all the warmth of a prison warden. You are not allowed to speak to the young master. No eye contact with Mr. Kang. Do your job. Clean, stay invisible, collect your paycheck. Understood? Adana nodded, but her eyes kept drifting to the photographs lining the hallways. A beautiful woman with kind eyes, pregnant and glowing. The same woman holding a newborn, except the photo was in a frame draped with black ribbon. Mi-sun, Hyun-woo's mother. Gone before her son ever heard her say his name. Adana met Hyun-woo on her second day. She was cleaning the library when she saw him sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by colored pencils and drawing paper. He was small for 8, delicate features like his mother, dark eyes that seemed too old for his face. He was drawing birds, dozens of them, eagles, sparrows, cranes, all in flight, all with their beaks open like they were singing. She watched him for a moment, then smiled. He glanced up, met her eyes for half a second, then looked away. But as he returned to his drawing, his hand drifted to his right ear. He touched it, winced, pulled his hand away, then 30 seconds later touched it again. Adana's chest tightened. She'd seen that gesture before. She just knew she'd seen that somewhere. Mrs. Choi appeared in the doorway like a shadow. "I told you not to interact with him." "You were just leaving." Mrs. Choi's voice was ice. "Mr. Kang doesn't need staff giving his son false hope. The boy is deaf. That's final." Mrs. Choi didn't understand that help could come from anywhere, and it is never wise to look down on anybody. Adana bowed her head and left. But that night, lying in her cramped apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about Hyun-woo's hand drifting to his ear, about the wince, about the way he touched it like something was wrong. It reminded her of her cousin, Chidi, back in Nigeria. Chidi had been deaf for 6 years. 6 years of silence, of special schools, of their family grieving a loss that wasn't a loss at all, until a nurse at a free clinic in Enugu finally looked inside his ear and pulled out a mass of compacted wax and debris the size of a marble. Chidi heard instantly. The little boy cried for an hour straight, just listening to his own voice. What if, Adana thought, what if? Her mind was full of questions, but the fear of losing her job and getting into the blacklist of the dangerous billionaire scared Adana like there was no tomorrow. The job meant a world to her, and losing it wasn't an option. However, over the next 2 weeks, Adana found small ways to connect with Hyun-woo. She left an origami crane on his desk. The next day, it was sitting on his windowsill, carefully preserved. She learned basic Korean Sign Language from YouTube videos late at night, her eyes burning from screen fatigue. One morning, she signed "hello" to him as she passed his room. His eyes went wide. He signed back. A small smile crept across his face, the first she'd seen from him. They developed their own language, half KSL, half gestures they invented together. He'd show her his drawings. She'd show him photos of Nigeria on her phone, her grandmother's smile, the red dirt roads of Enugu, the markets bursting with color. He was fascinated. He pointed to her grandmother and signed a question she didn't understand at first. Then she realized. He was asking if Adana's mother was alive. She shook her head. He nodded slowly, touched his chest, then pointed to a photo of Mi-soon on his desk. Same, his eyes said. Same. But through it all, Hyun-woo kept touching his ear, and the touches were getting more frequent, more urgent. Mrs. Choi caught them in the garden one afternoon, Hyun-woo giggling silently as Adana showed him a video of Nigerian kids dancing. The housekeeper's face went red. "This ends now. You're here to clean, not to play teacher. Mr. Kang's pain is deep enough without you reminding him of what his son will never have." "I'm just being kind," Adana said quietly. "Kindness here is cruelty. You don't understand what that boy represents to this family. Every time Mr. Kang looks at him, he sees his wife's death. Don't make it worse."
But Jawan had been watching. From his office window, he'd seen his son laugh, actually laugh, shoulders shaking, head thrown back in joy even if no sound came out. He hadn't seen Hyun-woo smile in 6 months, maybe longer. The boy had become a ghost in his own home, and Jawan had let it happen because looking at his son hurt too much. Hyun-woo had Mi-sun's eyes, her smile, and every time Jawan tried to connect, all he felt was the crushing weight of what he'd lost. His assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, Dr. Yoon called again. He wants to schedule another round of auditory nerve therapy. Jawan stared at the treatment invoice on his desk. 50 million won for the last session. He'd been paying Dr. Yoon Ta-sung for 8 years. The man was a consultant for Hansung Pharmaceuticals, one of Seoul's most respected ENT specialists. If anyone could help Hyun-woo, it should be him. Book it, Jawan said. What's another 50 million when I've already spent billions? 3 weeks after Adana started working at the estate, everything changed. She was cleaning the second-floor hallway when she heard a thump from Hyun-woo's room. It was muffled, heavy, and wrong. She dropped her cleaning cloth and ran. The door was ajar. Hyun-woo was on the floor, curled into a ball, clutching his right ear with both hands. Tears streamed down his face. His mouth was open in a silent scream. Adana's heart stopped. She dropped to her knees beside him. Hyun-woo, Hyun-woo, look at me. She pulled his hands away gently. His ear was red, hot to the touch. He was sobbing, desperate, and pointing at it like he was begging her to make it stop. She ran for Mrs. Choi, who immediately called Jawan. He arrived within minutes, still in his suit from a board meeting, and scooped Hyun-woo into his arms like the boy weighed nothing. Adana tried to speak. "Sir, please, if I could just look." "You're a maid, not a doctor," Jawan said, his voice sharp with fear. "Step back." They rushed Hyun-woo to Dr. Yoon's private clinic. Adana was left standing in the hallway, her hands shaking, her mind screaming. She knew. Deep in her bones, she knew what was wrong, but no one would listen to her. Why would they? She was nobody. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat on her apartment floor with her laptop, searching. Child deaf, but touches ear frequently. Ear pain, but diagnosed as nerve damage. Misdiagnosed deafness. The results came flooding in. Medical journal articles, forum posts from desperate parents, case studies. One article made her breath catch. Misdiagnosed congenital deafness due to impacted cerumen and debris. A case study of bilateral auditory canal obstruction. The symptoms matched Hyun-woo exactly. Frequent ear touching, pain episodes, diagnosed as congenital without otoscopic examination. She found a forum post from a mother in the Philippines. "They did 4 MRIs on my son. 4. Never once did a doctor actually look inside his ear with a scope. They just assumed nerve damage because he was born not responding to sound. Turns out he had a massive blockage from an untreated infection as a newborn. When they finally removed it at age 9, he heard instantly. 9 years stolen because no one checked." Adana's hands trembled as she typed a message to her grandmother on WhatsApp. What if they never actually looked inside his ear? Her grandmother's response came minutes later. "Then you know what you have to do, my child." "Grandma, I could lose my job, my visa. They could have me arrested." What did Queen Esther say? "If I perish, I perish." That boy needs you, and God didn't bring you to that house by accident. Adana closed her laptop and prayed. Not a polite prayer, a desperate one. "God, if this is you, make a way. If I'm wrong, stop me. But if I'm right, give me courage." The next morning, Hyun-woo returned from Dr. Yoon's clinic. Mrs. Choi told the staff it was just a headache. They'd given him pain medication. Nothing serious. But Adana watched Hyun-woo walk past her in the hallway, and he was still wincing, still touching his ear when he thought no one was looking. Nothing had been checked. Nothing had been done. She made her decision, a decision that would brutally change everything. During lunch break, while the other staff ate in the kitchen, Adana boiled water and sterilized a pair of tweezers she'd bought from a pharmacy. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She put on latex gloves. This was insane. This was illegal. This could destroy her life. This action could send her to jail for a very long time. But if she did nothing, and that boy suffered for 8 more years or worse, she'd never forgive herself. She found Hyun-woo in his room drawing. She knelt beside him and signed slowly. "Can I look at your ear? The one that hurts." He hesitated. His eyes searched hers. Then he nodded. She gently tilted his head, angling it toward the window light. She turned on her phone's flashlight and peered into Hyunwoo's right ear canal. For a moment she saw nothing. Then she adjusted the angle and her breath stopped. There it was. Lord, there it was. A dark, dense mass lodged deep in the canal, almost black. It wasn't just earwax. It looked like compacted debris, cerumen mixed with what might be old blood and skin cells, hardened over years into a solid plug. It was huge, the size of a large bean, and it was sitting there, blocking everything, pressing against his eardrum. This was why he couldn't hear. This was what 60 billion won in specialists had missed. Tears blurred Adana's vision. She blinked them away. She signed to Hyunwoo, "I need to take something out of your ear. It might hurt a little bit, but I think it's why you can't hear. Do you trust me?" Hyunwoo looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded. She positioned him on his side, his head braced against the pillow. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to stop and breathe. "God, guide my hands, please." She picked up the sterilized tweezers, leaned close, peered into the canal. The mass was right there. She could see the edge of it. Slowly, carefully, she inserted the tips of the tweezers. Hyunwoo whimpered but stayed still. She whispered in Igbo, "Chineke, nyerem aka." God help me. She gripped the edge of the mass. It was hard, compacted. She applied gentle, steady pressure, pulling outward. It barely moved. She adjusted her angle, tried again. Hyunwoo's breath hitched, but he didn't pull away. "Come on," Adana prayed. "Come on." She pulled again, firmer this time, and felt it shift. The mass began to slide, bit by bit. She kept steady pressure, her whole body tense, and then, with one final careful pull, it came free. The plug was massive, dark and waxy, streaked with old blood, dense as a stone. She stared at it, horrified and awed. This had been inside his ear for years, maybe since he was a baby. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Hyunwoo lay still. Then his eyes flew open, wide, wider than she'd ever seen. His head whipped toward the window where birds were chirping outside, then toward the hallway where footsteps echoed, then toward his desk where a clock was ticking. He gasped, a real audible gasp, the first sound Adana had ever heard him make. Listen, if this story is touching your heart right now, please tap that like button. It helps more people find stories like this. And trust me, you need to stay until the end. What happens next will absolutely blow your mind. His hands flew to his ears. He sat up, spinning, his mouth open in shock. He could hear the rustle of his clothes, the creak of the bed, his own breathing. He looked at Adana and tears poured down his face. His mouth moved, shaping sounds he'd never made before. Up. His voice was rough, unused, but real. He pointed to his ear, then at Adana, then at the window. He was trying to tell her he could hear. She was sobbing. "You can hear me? Hyunwoo, you can hear?" He nodded frantically, and then he ran, out of the room, down the hallway, his footsteps pounding. He burst into his father's office on the first floor. Jaewon was on a video conference call with investors in New York. Hyunwoo crashed into the room, making sounds, actual vocalizations, pointing to his ears, tears streaming. Jaewon stood, his face blank with shock. "Hyunwoo?" He nodded, his mouth opened. With enormous effort, he shaped the word, Dad. Jaewon's tablet slipped from his hands and clattered to the floor. "What? Huh?" Hyunwoo grabbed his father's hand and pulled him upstairs, running. They reached Hyunwoo's room. Adana was still there, standing frozen, the extracted mass in a tissue in her trembling hands. Jaewon saw her, saw the tweezers, saw the dark plug. His face shifted from shock to confusion to something darker. "What did you do?"
Adana's voice shook. "Sir, I found a blockage in his ear. I thought—" "You operated on my son?" His voice rose, sharp and dangerous. "You? Without permission? Without medical training? Are you insane?" "Mr. Kang, please, if you just have a doctor confirm—" "You could have killed him." Jaewon's face was red, punctured his eardrum, caused an infection. "You're not a doctor, you're a maid." He grabbed his phone. "Security, I need someone in my son's room immediately. Detain Miss Okafor and call the police." "No!" Hyunwoo's voice cracked through the air. It was rough, barely intelligible, but it was a voice. "No! Appa!" Jaewon froze, stared at his son. Hyunwoo was crying, trying to form words, pulling at his father's sleeve. 2 security guards arrived and took Adana's arms. She didn't resist. She just looked at Hyunwoo and smiled through her tears. "It's okay. You can hear now. That's all that matters." They led her out. Hyunwoo screamed, an awful, raw sound, and tried to follow, but Jaewon held him back. The house fell into chaos. 90 minutes later, Jaewon sat in an examination room at Seoul National University Hospital with Hyunwoo. Dr. Kim Ji-hye, the head of the ENT department, had examined his son's ear with an otoscope, run hearing tests, performed tympanometry. Now she sat across from Jaewon with a strange expression on her face. "Is there damage? Did she hurt him?" Jaewon asked, his voice tight. Dr. Kim shook her head slowly. "Mr. Kang, your son can hear." "That's impossible. His tympanic membrane is intact. There's minor inflammation from the extraction, but no perforation, no permanent damage. And his auditory nerve is functioning perfectly." She held up the mass Adana had removed, now in a specimen container. "This is a compacted ceruminous plug with debris. It likely formed over years, possibly from an untreated ear infection in infancy. It completely occluded his external auditory canal." Jaewon felt the room tilt. "But every specialist said his deafness was congenital, irreversible." "Mr. Kang, may I access Hyunwoo's full medical records?" He authorized it immediately. Dr. Kim pulled up the files on her computer, scrolling through years of reports. Then she stopped. Her face went very still. She turned the screen toward Jaewon. It was a scan from 5 years ago. St. Mary's Medical Clinic, Dr. Yoon Tae-sung's facility. And there, in the clinical notes, clear as day, dense ceruminous obstruction noted in right external auditory canal. Recommend manual extraction under light sedation. Follow-up scheduled. The date, February 14th, 2020. The recommendation, never followed up. Jaewon's vision blurred. His hands started shaking. "They knew. 5 years ago they knew." Dr. Kim's voice was gentle but firm. "Mr. Kang, I need to be very clear. This was medical negligence. That note recommends a simple procedure that would have taken 15 minutes. Your son has been deaf for 8 years because someone didn't follow through." Jaewon pulled up his phone with trembling fingers. He accessed Hansong Pharmaceuticals' financial records. Dr. Yoon Tae-sung had been Hyunwoo's primary physician for 8 years. He was also a paid consultant for Hansong, advising on auditory drug development. Annual consulting fee, 800 million won. And the clinic bills. Jaewon scrolled through them, his stomach turning. Every visit, 5 to 15 million won. Experimental auditory nerve therapy. Genetic consultations. Treatments that never worked because they were treating the wrong thing. Total billed over 8 years, 62 billion won. Dr. Yoon had every financial incentive to keep Hyunwoo untreatable. It justified the ongoing clinic visits. It justified his consulting position. It justified everything. Jaewon stood abruptly. "Get me my legal team, now, and release Miss Okafor immediately." Adana was sitting in a holding room at the estate when Jaewon walked in. She looked small, exhausted, her eyes red from crying. He sat down across from her. The silence stretched. Finally he spoke. "You were right." She looked up. 5 years ago, they found the blockage, noted it in his file, recommended removal. His voice cracked, and they did nothing, just kept billing me, kept him deaf for money. Adana's breath caught. Mr. Kang, I spent $50 million on specialists around the world, and the person who saved my son was the one person I didn't listen to. He bowed his head, a full 90-degree bow, deeply apologetic. Forgive me, please. Tears slid down her cheeks. I just saw my cousin in him. I couldn't do nothing. You did what love told you to do, while I trusted credentials and money. He lifted his head. You gave my son his voice, and I had you arrested. Over the next week, Hyunwoo's world exploded with sound. He heard rain for the first time and ran outside, spinning in it, laughing, a real laugh that echoed through the estate. He heard music and cried during a piano piece his mother used to play. He heard his father say, I love you for the first time, and signed it back, then whispered, Sarang Hae. Adana was there for all of it. She'd been asked to stay, not as a maid, but as Hyunwoo's companion while he adjusted. And every day, Jawon watched her with his son and felt something shift in his chest. One evening, he found her in the garden. I need to ask you something. She turned. Yes? My legal team wants to keep this quiet, the negligence, the fraud. They say a scandal will hurt Han Sung's stock price. Her face fell. So you'll protect them? That's what they advised. But I fired Dr. Yoon this morning, filed criminal charges, and I'm holding a press conference tomorrow to expose everything. Her eyes widened. Jawon stepped closer. I don't want you to work for me, Adana. I want you to stay as the woman who gave me everything back, my son's voice, my hope, my reason to believe in miracles again. Mr. Kang, I'm just... You're the bravest person I've ever met. Footsteps. They both turned. Hyunwoo stood in the doorway, his voice small but clear. Adana, stay? She looked at the boy, then at his father. Yes, I'll stay. Jawon stepped forward and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't. He leaned in. She didn't pull away. Their lips met, soft and tentative, and for the first time in 8 years, Kan Jae-won felt whole. Hyunwoo giggled, a bright, beautiful sound. They broke apart, laughing. The three of them stood there in the garden, and the house that had been silent for so long was finally, blessedly full of sound. Some miracles, it turned out, were just the beginning. Blessings can come into your life in ways you never expected, so keep hope alive. Thank you for watching till the end. You're the real MVP.
And before you go, do yourself a favor and watch my other stories on my channel. You won't regret it. See you in the next one, and remember, some miracles are just the beginning. Thank you for watching.